Hey folks, just wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about how I set the drag on a spinning rod. I back them off after every trip because I'm going to change lures, and the lure is really something that determines the lure and the rod that I'm throwing it on, what kind of tension that I want on this. This is loose all the way, so I'm going to tighten that a little bit. How tight I get it, I mean, I could lock this down, and that's totally inappropriate for this bait. Why? Because this bait with the treble hooks it's a fine wire hook. It doesn't require a lot of pressure to go in, and that's all you're trying to achieve with the fish you're trying to catch and the bait you're using. You only want it tightened down enough that you have an effective hook set. Beyond then, you're letting the drag help you with the fight. If they have a long surge, long run, that's probably something that a good looser drag is going to help you with. But if it's so loose that you have an ineffective hook set, that's not good. This one is on a moderate action rod. You can actually leave those with the treble hook baits a little bit looser. But let's change from the treble hook bait to one that has a heavier diameter, the swim jig. So compared to the crankbait I just had, which has 3 hooks in 2 places that are very thin and don't require a whole lot of force to embed in the inside of the fish's mouth, that swim jig hook is a little bit beefier and it requires a little bit more drag. So this rod, that's too loose. At full length cast, when you have it, way out there, you have to have enough force on it with all that line out that you're not only gathering the slack, but driving that hook point home when you have a really good hook set. So right now, that's a little bit too loose. And this same rod, I think that's effective. So this same rod, I'm fishing for smallmouth with that swim jig. I had up in Maine not long ago, fishing with Mike Baker, and we were using gravity tackle eels, and that was a bigger hook yet. And the roof of the mouth of a striper is pretty hard in there, so you're going to have to really wrench down. So same setup, different lure, different fish, and I really wrenched down in there. So a couple things you're taking into account when setting the drag on a spinning reel. A, what is the hook diameter you're using? B, what is the kind of fish that you're fishing for, and how hard is the inside of their mouth and how hard they're going to pull. And then the last one is the action of the rod. This one's a fast action, and that's what I'm going to want. Fairly stiff drag with that bigger diameter hook. So the guidelines of how tight or loose you should have it are really based on your knowing when you pull on it, how does that translate in terms of a good hook set or an ineffective hook set when you're doing this instead of this. So one real good way to do it is to pick something that is pretty much stationary. And I got this branch right here. I'm gonna hook that swim jig on it, and I'm gonna back up at a maximum distance that I would set the hook, and I'm gonna set the hook. All right, this isn't maximum distance, but for the purposes of the video, you get it. So if I'm setting the hook there, and I know that if I pull that hard, that it's an effective hook set on a fish in the water, then I'm good to go. If I pull on it and I think, ooh, yeah, that would have been a missed hook set, then you tighten it. That's how you translate the feel of, is that a good drag setting, to it being in your hand and you're doing an effective hook set. So I know there's going to be some comments, man, you're doing it all wrong, you lock that sucker down all the way. Yeah, that'll work if you're fishing with cable. The other thing the main thing you're trying to do with setting the drag effectively is not have break-offs on hook set. Break-offs happen for poor knots, for too light a line, for, you know, running behind an object and cutting it off, or a number of reasons. But in a drag that's set too tight for the gear you're using, including your line and your rod, or even bending out a hook, which does happen out here on the Susquehanna with these smallmouth, you know, that's because the drag was too tight. So I get it just tight enough that I can set the hook and it's in the fish, and then I actually loosen the drag. But it starts with setting it the right way when you start out each day.